A distress call blared on every comm channel. The last human warship had disappeared. Panic gripped Allied fleets and alien armadas alike. It was unclear whether it was destroyed or had fled. Everywhere, urgent signals were cracking, seeking answers. It was a near apocalypse. Panic soared up. All across the galaxy, frantic messages cackled with the same nightmarish report. Humanity's last starship, the one said to carry its last chance to survive, had disappeared without a trace. Until now, most empires thought it was indestructible, a relic of bitter wars that showed humans would never quit. Its disappearance upended that assumption overnight. Alien overlords convened in gilded chambers, all of them jitters and jangly nerves. A lot of people suspected sabotage or a secret trap. Could a prehistoric enemy have resurfaced to attack humanity's greatest defense? Others theorized that humans might have engineered a vast hoax. Wild theories buzzed. Some swore the warship had fled into a dimension where it was forbidden to tread. Others maintained it had been commandeered by pirates gone rogue, bent on unspeakable power. Whatever the explanation, the result was fear, terror. For centuries, the knowledge that Earth's final warship stood watch at fragile borders had produced a curious stability. Even those who feared humankind's fabled fierce resolve found comfort in the predictable patterns. If any of Earth's vital colonies came under threat, the warship would appear, unleashing unstoppable might to deter potential conquerors. All of known space quailed without that sentinel. Fleets rushed to scour contested spaces for detritus or weak signals. Patrol boats came back without any evidence of fighting, no bits of debris to show the ship sank in battle. Sensors near nearby wormhole junctions showed no signs of strange energy pulses. Data was empty. It just exacerbated paranoia. Leaders called for the intelligence agencies to do more, but nowhere turned up a hint of a clue. Civilian communities that had once relied on the trade routes secured only indirectly by the warship's reputation were terrified of unfettered outlaw piracy or expansionist regimes. The number of reports of lawless raids grew. Governors called for shoring up local defenses, acutely aware that no assistance would come from humanity's storied champion. In a flurry of frantic messages, diplomatic lines crackled. Had Earth given up on the galaxy, leaving it to chaos? Among political councils, suspicions boiled. Some suspected humans may be putting on a clever ruse. Or maybe they wanted competing empires to overextend themselves in anticipation of a non-existent threat, only to attack from the dark. Newer artists' statement others cited infighting among human factions, noting that a mutiny may have disabled the ship. None had definitive evidence, and that void of certainty promoted panic. Former Earth allies were sending urgent requests for reports. At best, they got cryptic acknowledgments. Earth's own officials confessed they, too, had lost communication with the warship. No official statement calmed anybody. The lack of a unifying explanation led to passionate wrangling across every star-spanning field. Even the most sophisticated sensor networks went dark, as if the warship had slipped into cosmic fog. As the tensions escalated, scattered incidents suggested deeper peril. Some of the more distant colonies reported sightings of unknown vessels brushing their orbits. These were speculated to be scouting parties from opportunistic fleets that were testing Earth's defenses. If something did, the whole region was on the brink of war. The legendary presence of the warship once put these ambitions to bed. Then, with that symbol removed, balance shattered. Leaders struggled to keep the peace as fear pushed once compliant partners away. In some worlds, borders locked down, turning away foreign vessels. Others took neighboring systems, arguing that defense required aggressive expansion. Long-simmering enmities flared, each empire secretly believing that the others had somehow captured or annihilated the missing warship to benefit strategically. In reality, no one knew. That ignorance became a weapon of its own. As diplomats thrived upon bickering and admirals on repositioning fleets, the fundamental question remained. How was the warship so utterly and thoroughly expunged that not a scrap of evidence remained? It defied logic. Some energy signature should remain, even if it was destroyed in an apocalyptic event. If it had slipped into some hidden star lane, advanced detection arrays could pick up faint trails. Instead, the warship's vanishing act was total, and thus was a universal chill cast upon the galaxy. one in which the words referred to unstoppable events in motion beyond anyone's control. If the last ship of humanity could disappear so quietly, what else was lurking in the frigid black? For generations, that warship was a symbol of humanity's grit. Its hull was scarred from battles had fought and won, the times Earth almost fell. Abandoned cargo pods, welded repairs, and the dim glow of experimental reactors spoke of a brutal history of war. The ship's very presence stabilized the delicate coalitions born since humanity had beaten off invasions by hungry empires. It was no museum piece. Here was the final bastion, a living reminder of survival. Across Earth's planet-bound cities, the warship was almost a guardian spirit. Children were taught stories of its heroic interventions. Its battle records recounted how it single-handedly halted fleets dozens of times its size, using cunning tactics and sheer perseverance. Diplomats played off its reputation, making sure enemies thought twice before probing Earth's borders. It was said that if that warship still sailed, no adversary would ever crush all of humanity. Now, that certainty wavered. Frantic comm sessions unfolded inside bunkers beneath Earth's surface. High-ranking advisors replayed the last known coordinates, checking for anomalies across every waveband they could conceive of. Diminishing were hopes it was a simple malfunction. The ship's sophisticated systems were designed to maintain contact even through terrible damage. To disappear meant something supernatural, a sabotage, a wormhole accident, a betrayal from within. The crew's unquestioned loyalties suddenly began to be called into question. Perhaps a covert faction stole the warship for its own purposes? Conspiracy theories thrived. Skeptics argued that no rebellious force could amass resources to bribe or compel the entirety of the ship's crew. Others theorized on external infiltration by shapeshifters or artificial intelligences. These arguments, unproven, went round and round. On the human leadership side, many tried to remain calm, ordering broad searches at neighboring systems. They dispatched little escort ships to scan jump gates, planetoid bases, and unexplored nebulae. Days became weeks with no advancement. Allies from other species offered up sensor drones or specialized scanning technology, all eager to share the load. Yet no clue emerged. The silence was deafening. Beyond a single blue ball of life, fear and confusion coalesced into chaotic shapes. Some alien nations went reclusive, suspecting some unknown threat had claimed the warship. Others prepared for war, not knowing whether humans would lash out in desperation. Even long-term friends fretted that without its iconic defender, Earth would take drastic steps to protect itself, perhaps using weapons that had never been employed. Stories spread that the warship's final signals suggested a surging cosmic anomaly. If that were true, did the ship disappear into another dimension? Was it caught in some gap between regular spacetime? Astrophysicists combed through faint data from gravitational waves, finding no definitive sign. Meanwhile, families of the warship's crew waited for news that never came, holding on to the hope of a miraculous return. Every passing hour eroded confidence. Earth's greatest champion had offered no farewell, nor sign of distress, nor trail to follow. But observers from far-flung clusters of stars couldn't help but marvel at what had become of the once mighty alliance whose heart was the massive warship manned by humans. If that vessel really was lost forever, entire regions risked slipping into open warfare. With the ship, the legacy as a deterrent was gone. But a stubborn flicker of faith persisted among some who believed in the crew's ingenuity. They said the warship was out there, concealed on purpose. Maybe it was gearing up for an audacious counterattack against fresh foes, or undertaking a mission so vital that secrecy was imperative. Under such a scenario, any public awareness of its maneuvers could spell destruction for all of them. A dangerous theory, but one that provided a nugget of hope. No, Earth would need that warship itself, its last hope. The question was whether that hope had been extinguished, or whether the real story had just begun. A grand hunt began across star charts once considered too remote for serious exploration. It was a chase joined by every faction with a dog in the fight over the missing warship, each for its own reasons. Earth's allies tried to rescue, or at least verify the vessel's status. Rival empires sought to claim it for themselves. If they could harness its technology, no realm would dare challenge them. Task forces patrolled ancient jump lanes, traversing fields of cosmic dust rarely traveled. They searched derelict stations that rumors said housed black market exiles, hoping for clues or stolen data logs. Buoys specialized for sensor work were scattered at hyperlane intersection points and scanned for energies matching the warship's signature. But every day passed with only silence or false leads. As the search unfolded, strange rumors emerged. One scout vessel claimed to have detected an echo of the warship's transponder in the vicinity of a collapsed star. Another claimed to have caught a glimpse of hull pieces floating in a supernova's wake. Investigations uncovered mirages or wreckage planted by smugglers seeking to bait gullible crews into ambushes. But the frantic searches went on. No, rumor was too far-fetched. Well into unfamiliar waters, an Allied cruiser detected a faint code sequence that matched a portion of the warship's encoding key. Cheers erupted on the bridge. This clue guided them to a cold, dead moon orbiting a distant gas giant. They cranked up the sensors to maximum and scanned every square meter of rock. There was no ship, only the remains of a deserted pirate encampment left forlornly years before. Still, that transient sign fueled renewed resolve. If anything from the warship's data survived, they needed to keep looking. In more treacherous areas, fighting broke out as rival search parties fought. Some cynical souls thought whoever first located the warship might have some cosmic power. There were Dos and Dante knots around jump gates. Suppose tips were followed up with gunfire. Tensions flared and watchers feared a full-blown war would erupt from the vacuum left by humanity's fallen champion. Earth opened its own elite exploration team, a group of smaller craft designed for stealth adaptation. They sailed the farthest reaches, searching for anomalies. Sometimes they picked up ghost signals that echoed the warship's encryption, only to discover static upon close examination. Morale ebbed and flowed, but the drive to continue was rock solid. The last warship was more than a killing machine. It was a symbol of Earth's survival instinct. A lucky break came after weeks of fruitless sweeps. A damaged merchant ship made its way into a neutral port, bearing a breathless tale. Its crew had discovered a hidden meeting place in a cluster of asteroids. There, they had spotted dark shapes that resembled the outline of the missing warship. The vessel inexplicably had unknown vessels surrounding it, all with advanced stealth capabilities. There was no head-to-head encounter, but the merchant's sensors registered brief crossing paths that could potentially fit the warship's distinctive design. This discovery set off a race. Fleets from several factions rushed to that asteroid group. They set up perimeter patrols and probed each and every rock with scanning pulses. The tension became palpable. If the last human warship truly lay hidden in that region, captured or stationed there by unknown allies, discovery could turn the balance of power in the galaxy overnight. But the cluster proved to be a maze of twisting canyons and dense mineral deposits that interrupted scanning. Patrol ships went in, losing contact for a moment. As sensor interference took hold, others saw flashes of something titanic prowling the dark confines. Some detected areas of strange electromagnetic signals, but no one was able to establish where the warship was. It was like pursuing a ghost in a celestial labyrinth. Then came the pivotal moment. It was a simple thing for a small infiltration team from Earth's alliance to spot, though, an unmistakable resonance, a high-frequency pulse recognizable by the warship's reactor blueprints. They issued an urgent call for backup, believing they had the vessel's track. However, before reinforcements could arrive, the infiltration team went dark from comms. What was left was a half-broken message. "We found not alone. This changes everything." That last gasp inspired both fear and excitement among seekers. It confirmed that the warship was out there, unscathed but somehow hidden. But not alone, suggested new alliances or captors. Rival fleets closed in on the infiltration team's coordinates, each hoping to be the first to claim the most momentous prize in memory. Tension pulsed across every frequency. Skirmishes flared once more in the claustrophobic asteroid lanes. And all the while, the warship remained silent, its secrets concealed by labyrinthine rock formations. At that time, the search became a frenzy. No one could say who would solve the riddle first, or what waited in the shadows if the warship truly was bound to something larger. The whole galaxy teetered on a knife's edge, and the final human warship hovered at the middle of a roiling storm. Allies and enemies alike felt a turning point. If the infiltration team's cryptic warning bore the meaning they feared, then the warship's disappearance signaled forces beyond their darkest imaginings. Among the twisting ways of the asteroid cluster, emerging task forces collided. Torpedo streaks lit rocky corridors, and laser beams cut molten grooves through flotsam. The search for humanity's lost warship descended into pitched battles. But every battle was over almost before it began, drowned in the sounds of ghostly rhythms that washed across the aggregation. These pulses disrupted targeting systems, compelling combatants to pull back or risk catastrophic collisions with the asteroid walls. But behind the chaos, Earth's stealth scouts crept deeper. They ducked firefights, following intermittent beeps that suggested where the infiltration team was. On cramped decks, tensions rose. The last message those scouts sent still echoed in everybody's mind. This changes everything. As they delved deeper, they encountered increasingly strange anomalies, pockets of gravitational flux, random energy surges that led to sensor blackouts, readings that made a mockery of standard physics. A long-range scanner then detected an unmistakable trace, the faint signature of the human warship's reactor. A feeling of relief intertwined with dread. That trace suggested the warship's hull remained completely intact, but it remained suspended in an area saturated with an indeterminate amount of other radiation. The stealth scouts attempted to transmit coordinates, but interference distorted the messages. Earth's leaders, watching from a remote base, saw their feeds go to static. Minutes later, communication with the scouts was severed. Other opportunistic aliens in the cluster deployed advanced burrow drones to bore tunnels through the most massive asteroids. They wanted to evade the fighting near the outskirts and emerge nearer the float's likely position relative to the massive warship. A collusion of minor powers employed rift cutters, experimental devices that opened microjump corridors within the cluster. But each approach faced unintended perils, gravitational pockets that ripped rifts asunder, or swarms of ionized dust that soaks navigational arrays blind. As the confusion continued, a shadowy organization, which many believed to be rebellious humans, struck. They had sent specialized infiltration pods that could cling to rocky surfaces and avoid detection. They appeared to have only a surgical objective: locate the warship, take the ship, and disappear. And no one could vouch for their allegiance or objectives. Others thought they wished to reinstitute Earth's iron hand by seizing the ship. Others wondered if they were serving a nefarious conspiracy that had its own nefarious reasons for wanting the secrets of the warship. Frantic chatter on radio channels described an artifact that had latched itself onto the warship's hull, producing the disruptive pulses. Others said it was a much older artifact, predating any known civilization. Others said it had been set by a mysterious adversary who might have taken the warship captive. If that were the case, the vessel's entire crew could be prisoners, or worse. This information added to the desperation of the fighting fleets. Little by little, a troubling realization began to settle in. The warship's disappearance had not been an accident. It was deliberately hidden by frenemy or enemy. Someone had set events in motion to lure factions to this treacherous asteroid maze. The environment of the cluster became more dangerous with every new battle or sabotage. Rockslides crashed, shorelines and wandering gravity wells grabbed unprepared vessels. But still, they pressed on. One dented scout frigate from a neutral alliance eventually broke through the interference long enough to transmit partial footage. It held a towering silhouette instantly recognizable as the human warship. It cruised within a cavernous asteroid pocket, illuminated in a dull red light. Bizarre structures spiraled upward from the surface, radiating an inscrutable energy that clung to the hull. The crew of the frigate could only take a few blurry frames before the feed was cut. That was all that the galaxy needed to locate the warship. Frantic fleets streamed toward those coordinates. It was not merely how to approach the ship, but what horror awaited on the other side of it. Several of the captains expressed concern that the warship itself was no longer under human control. Others insisted it had been disabled and required a rescue. Or maybe it was something completely different. No one knew. To seize or liberate the ship overshadowed rational caution. In one last desperate act, several groups tried to infiltrate it once. They dispatched strike teams in specialty suits built for extreme radiation and gravitational distortion. These crews prepared for anything. Some pack hacking modules to take control of the warship systems. Others bring infiltration tools to sever the mysterious artifact's connection. All were doing so with one aim: be the first to determine the fate of the warship. But as they began to descend into the cavernous pocket, an unseen force pulsed again. The artifact's energy soared. The labyrinth trembled, waves of fracturing rock surfaces. Communication was scrambled, leaving infiltration teams alone. Competing factions discovered too late that they had tripped into a final deadly riddle. The warship was there, yes, but so too was something beyond their ken, something older and far more dangerous. Both groups understood that taking possession of, or rescuing, the lost ship could have far more severe ramifications than any had anticipated. In that gargantuan hollowed asteroid, infiltrations made it to the cusp of enlightenment. Soft light from personal lamps illuminated the last human warship impaled on a tangle of throbbing tendrils. These tendrils erupted from a central lump dug into the wall of the cavern, an alien artifact, ancient and edged, that pulsed with waves of energy that echoed the warship's power core. There was no sign whatsoever of the crew. The proud hull was scarred by forces unknown. With tentative steps, they were drawn closer. They discovered airlocks breached with bad lights flashing inside. Silence fell like a graveyard. The infiltration squads moved cautiously, searching for any signs of life. Then, in a sealed chamber adjacent to the warship's command deck, they made a surprising discovery: stasis pods with members of the human crew. Monitors indicated stable vitals, but no indication that they had roused in weeks. It was as though the entire crew had been thrown into an enforced narcoleptic comatosis. While some of the infiltration members worked to liberate the humans, others pressed deeper into the artifact's domain. Strange light glyphs glared along the craggy walls. A cascade of data indicated the device had plugged itself into the warship's main reactor, siphoning off energy or controlling it. No one could tell. This was a phenomenon that was outside of standard models of physics. Some theorized that the artifact was rewriting the warship's systems, perhaps in order to turn it into a new weapon or to siphon the ship's energy for its own use. Frightened by these discoveries, each faction recognized the possible threat. Should the artifact successfully fuse completely with the warship, the consequences would be inescapable: an inconceivable elision of advancing human technology and a device from beyond the stars. Unbound by conventional limits, it could eclipse even the most daunting fleets in the galaxy. But a new question emerged. Was the artifact evil, or had it stopped the warship from a cataclysm by anchoring it here? The answer being complicated by the stasis pods. Outside, more vessels were coming in, jockeying for position. They made uneasy truces against an unknown enemy. Tense negotiations flared. Some were insisting that the warship be obliterated before the artifact finished taking over. Others argued for a rescue mission to save humanity's prized possession. Humanity's surviving delegates begged for caution, hoping to wake the crew and disrupt the artifact's influence without irreversible damage. And then, the artifact erupted in energy. The walls of the cavern shook, sending pieces of rock falling. The hull of the warship glimmered while systems activated in strange configurations. Alien symbols lit up inside consoles. Automatic turrets remorselessly trained on infiltration teams. The howls for help blared as corridors locked themselves down. The warship was now a passive extension of the artifact's will, half awakening, half fogged. Panic infiltration squads scrambled to reset control panels. Others sought to dissect the warship's software, only to find alien encryption woven into Earth's code in layers beyond anything they had seen. Others attempted to tear free the tendrils, only to be thrown back by arcs of primal energy. Out in craft, however, pulses of unknown energy bled from the asteroid, slashing up the entire region. All factions stood on the brink of flight or fight. If the alien-worshipping warship completely regained its senses, it would be all but unstoppable. Some took the risk of firing torpedoes into the cavern, trying to entomb the artifact before the link was secured. But Earth defenders, desperate to save theirs, shot those torpedoes out of the sky. Tempers flared, resulting in chaotic firefights in the outer corridors of the asteroid. Inside that spiral of crisis, a single infiltrator was able to hack the stasis chamber's core terminal. They punched in the code to override the locks and reactivated the pods. The human crew emerged one by one, dazed and disoriented but alive. The initial confusion of overnight guests turned into alarm as they soon realized that they were in the warship under siege. What they saw, racing to the bridge, was as the monstrous alien interface they had already seen twisting the vessel's systems. In a worst-case scenario, the newly awakened humans attempted to sever the warship's reactor from the artifact. They put meltdown prevention protocols in motion over internal comms while cutting vital feeds. For an instant, it paid off. Electric arcs dimmed. The warship's engines flickered back into human control. But the artifact fought back, firing off a psychic overcharge that shook the crew and froze them in place halfway through. There was bedlam in the closing seconds. The artifact flared with intensity, the warship reactor bouncing to critical levels. By then, sensing meltdown, outside factions readied emergency jumps, sure that the whole asteroid could dissolve in a cataclysmic blast. But within, the human crew refused to give in. Finally, they forced manual overrides, realigning the flow of power so as to vent it safely through sheer will. Prominent panels erupted in sparks, yet meltdown was avoided. Just a silence rippled as the artifact's light faded. The warship steadied, engines buzzing in a muddled equilibrium. The infiltration teams, bloodied but in good health, stared in awe. Everything essential had shifted. The warship contained new capabilities pulled from the artifact's data. A forgotten cosmic language arching over the crest of time evaporated on the bridge view screens. Knowledge older than anything we could imagine from an empire yet to be discovered. This last finding would change the galaxy. The final human warship was no longer just a ship. It had transformed into something much more powerful and arguably much more dangerous. In the aftermath of that narrow crisis, the asteroid cluster went silent. There was no ultimate cataclysm that destroyed the region, and no enormous superweapon monster Mu ran amok across space. The last human warship, however, emerged from its rocky prison, battered yet transformed. Its tendrils had pulled back, leaving behind faint lines carved into the warship's hull. Whether a blessing or a curse, these lines throbbed with concealed possibility. And for an agonizing moment, the watching fleets worried his warship was obeying the alien device rather than its human crew. Then a steady signal emanated from the vessel, transmitting a universal request for a ceasefire. The humans, freshly revived from enforced stasis, declared they now had partial control and wanted no more bloodshed. Warships from various factions loitered, weapons readied but unloosed. It was a mix of curiosity and caution. Inside the warship's command deck, the crew tested every system. Diagnostics found exotic subroutines spliced into their code, courtesy of the artifact's imprint. Bizarre signs looped on screens, indicating advanced navigational data or perhaps wormhole engineering. None could decipher it fully, but certain, the warship had the ability to warp across conventional limits. Even now, the reactor readouts implied gains in efficiency that had previously seemed impossible. As news of this metamorphosis circulated, so did speculation about what comes next. What could Earth do with this new power responsibly? Most did not believe it, remembering what happens when humans are pushed into a corner. Others had hoped the artifact's legacy would unite the galaxy, replacing old hatreds with a renewed spirit of shared discovery. Either way called for discussion and not war. For now, cooler heads seemed to prevail, hoping to avoid another calamity. Earth's allies made tentative overtures to collaboration, suggesting joint research teams to decipher the artifact's knowledge. Rival empires, worried they would be left behind, signaled their own readiness to negotiate. Now holding the weight of ancient secrets, the crew on the warship realized they possessed a key to cosmic transformation. But there was uncertainty. What if the artifact's data contained malignant code capable of corrupting entire star systems? Across innumerable worlds, the news that the warship had not been obliterated but transformed ignited shock and discussion. Civilians, who once shuddered at the prospect of relentless warfare, felt they could hope that new fronts might open. Oppressed colonies ruled by tyrannies wondered whether such breakthroughs could liberate them. You're also fed juicy rumors from interstellar markets, hyper-advanced jump routes, or infinite energy solutions. The possibilities felt limitless, but also dangerous. As for the infiltration teams, they broke up. Some went back to their factions carrying stories of survival. Others stayed on, an uneasy partnership with humanity, intrigued by the artifact's mysteries. There was lingering suspicion among hardliner admirals that the warship's crew could be pawns of an undefined cosmic force. Quietly, some hawks clamored for a preemptive strike to ensure that no one faction could hoard the secrets of the artifact. But those calls met little enthusiasm for now. Within the walls, the newly awakened humans grappled with moral quandaries. Should they publish the artifact's code far and wide, trusting that together they could uplift the galaxy, or contain it, sacrificing the possibility of evil being turned against evil while making it impossible to misuse, but perhaps setting the stage for a greater conflict in the future? Earth's leaders, still perturbed at the near loss of their greatest vessel, understood that backroom decisions could have ramifications for millennia of interstellar diplomacy. As for the warship itself, it now found itself at a departure from its origin, no longer a simple wall watching Earth, but something deeper and ancient itself. The lines on my desk glowed, faintly in the dark, calling for the crew to dive deeper into the unknown. Did the artifact's presence simply wait to be awoken, or was it guiding them toward an unknown fate? The crew prepared for their fate, not knowing if they were charting their course or merely pawns in a larger game. At the entire cluster of asteroids, tension subdued. Fleets retreated to watch from afar. The balance of power would now be disproportional. Both sides knew that, and peace, while fragile, settled. Every species spoke in hushed tones of an era that had yet begun, of humans, long thought to the brink, to now guide the way of the stars. But a quiet chill accompanied the possibilities. The last human warship had come and gone, modified by contact with something beyond known science. What if this same phenomenon was waiting elsewhere, ready to turn or destroy unsuspecting civilizations? And if Earth's champion could do that, if she could disappear so easily, would others succumb to the artifact's influence? No final answer emerged. Just a quiet vow, muttered by the warship's crew as they scanned the battered hull and iron tentacle of pulsing alien scripts. They would not cower to fear. They would discover this gift and burden on their own terms, making allies if they could, but never giving up on caution. That decision reverberated throughout the galaxy. There remained a haunting sense of destiny, culminating in one last question. What if the lost warship's return was simply the beginning of a new and even more treacherous quest? There was a hush of reverence for the close of an old era yielding to something immensely grander.